It's been so long. We've been working long and hard over these last few years, and to the point now where this is the first election where my wife didn't have a baby on her hip and was able to come knocking on doors with me and to meet the people in our community and to hear, alongside me, what the issues are, what the challenges, what the dreams, and what the hopes are for the people in our community. And it's just like what our family wants. They want that hope. They know that you can't turn things around on a dime, but you have to have a plan. And that's what Canadians are expecting. Now, during the election, the Right Honourable Prime Minister, he was elected on a promise that he said he was the man with a plan and not the man with a slogan. He did offer slogans, and we got those, but we have yet to see his plan. We have a speech from the throne delivered by His Majesty. And it was a great day. I think it's so important to remind Canadians, for us to remember about the enduring connection between Parliament and the Crown and the strength of our democracy, the foundations of it, the history of our system. So it was great to have our Parliament opened. And I can tell you that I had the opportunity to meet His Majesty, and in an exchange, he expressed his hope that we would return to Centre Block, and that he hoped that it wasn't terribly delayed. And I said, in what would be, I'm sure, a break from protocol, I invited His Majesty to return to open Parliament when we return to Centre Block. And he was, he liked that idea very much, and I hope to, I look very much to that day. But we're here in the People's House, and they do want to see that plan. The speech from the throne that was delivered by the King, it contained many of the elements of the platform that was offered by the Prime Minister during the election. But following that, we expected to see the framework. What does it look like? How are they going to pay for their promises? What specific measures are they going to take, and how will they pay for them to build homes that Canadians can afford? To reduce the burden on Canadians who are paying taxes? How are they going to pay for the increased supports that our Canadian Armed Forces need, the brave men and women who serve our country, the kit that they need, new troops, more troops that we need to take care of the ones that we have, and of course, how are we going to take care of those that have served? How are we going to take care of our veterans? What does that look like in a budget? New CBSA officers to protect our borders, to protect Canadians from threats on the other side of our borders. Frontline police officers, how are they going to fund those programs? What are they going to do to keep Canadians safe in their communities? By keeping repeat violent offenders off of the streets. So we need to see those details in a budget. Now, the Conservatives have put forward an amendment, and that amendment it's absolute common sense. And I quote, "We urge Your Majesty's advisors to include a firm commitment to present to Parliament an economic update or budget this spring before the House adjourns for the summer that incorporates measures aimed at unleashing Canada's economic potential, including full accountability of Canada's finances with respect for the areas of jurisdiction and the institutions of Quebec and the provinces." That's what Canadians are expecting. And that's not a new amendment that I have, but this is what Conservatives are expecting, because we want to work in collaboration to get these things done for Canadians. We want to cut taxes. We want to build homes. We want safer streets. We want to eliminate those lines at the food banks. We want Canadians to have the spending power when they're working 1 and 2 jobs. They're building our country up. We want them to have that spending power and to have the freedom that comes along with, that's the result of the hard work that they've put into building our country. And it's an awesome responsibility that we have, but we need to demonstrate, we as a parliament need to demonstrate that there's that plan. Our role as His Majesty's loyal opposition is to hold the government accountable. And what we want from the government is that plan, so that we can scrutinize it and give the best results possible to Canadians. I know it's why I take the time away from my family. It's why I want to serve my community. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, of course, he wasn't able to join for my swearing in this time because of his health. But my 96-and-a-half-year-old grandfather, Francis Barrett, he's a proud Canadian. He served with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and he loves this country. He's taught me so much about why it's important to deliver for future generations, just like his generation did for us. And I love this country. I'm so proud to be back representing the people of my community. I'm going to work incredibly hard for them, just like I know members will in this place. We're looking forward to seeing a plan from the government, calling on them to deliver that today. Thank you, Speaker. Thank you to all Canadians.
Questions and comments. Question et commentaire. L'honorable député de Madawaska-Restigouche.
The Honourable Member for Madawaska-Restigouche. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I agree with my colleague. My colleague says that Canada is the best country in the world, and I couldn't agree more. Canadians are able to rally behind a project or a goal, and our goal is to unify our economy. But there's something I'm struggling to understand. If my colleague, like me, agrees that Canada is the best country in the world, then why has his party leader been talking negatively about Canada for years? Why has his party leader been shouting from every rooftop that Canada is broken? How can my colleague say that Canada is the best country in the world, but stand behind his leader who always says that Canada is broken?
Well, thank you, Speaker. I welcome that member, congratulate him on his election victory. It's important that there's accountability. And what we saw over the last 10 years, and is evidenced by the leader of his party's change in direction, is a complete reversal or commitment to reverse on many of the very things that his colleagues and his party perpetrated on Canada over the last 10 years. And so what they broke needs to be fixed. And that there needs to be accountability for that. And the best way for him to contribute, and for all members to contribute, is to make sure that there's a sound plan. But $500 billion in spending, which has been chucked on the table this week looking for a rubber stamp from parliamentarians, that's not a plan. It risks the same kind of economic vandalism that we saw over the last 10 years. We needn't repeat it. Let's see a budget.
Hear, hear. Questions and comments. The Honourable Member for Elgin, St. Thomas, London South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to congratulate my honourable colleague on his re-election. As members of the House may be aware, in the previous Parliament he served as the Shadow Minister for Ethics, which with the previous government was, I believe, 3.5 full-time jobs. Mr. Speaker, he was kept so busy with the litany of scandals and ethical lapses from Justin Trudeau and many of his cabinet ministers, and now we have a supposedly new government and a Prime Minister who won't even disclose potential conflicts of interest. So I'm just wondering if the honourable member is willing to take on what could be a repeat of the last Parliament in terms of the volume of ethical breaches that he will have to hold the government accountable for.
Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
I'd like to welcome my honourable colleague to this place. He obviously was a keen observer of what went on over the last 10 years. And look, it was not an encouraging time for Canadians. It had the serial ethical law-breaking that we saw with Justin Trudeau was an example that was set and unfortunately followed by other members of his cabinet. And hope springs eternal, And I'm very optimistic that we will see a change in tact from the new Prime Minister. And there is an opportunity. Now, there are unresolved issues, including the Prime Minister yet having declared to Canadians on a few important issues, including whether his investments were held in offshore tax havens, not paying his share of taxes for the important services that Canadians need. So there's still an opportunity for this Prime Minister to set a new tone. I remain very optimistic, but ready to do the hard work to hold them accountable either way.
Questions and comments? The honourable member for Winnipeg North.
Picking up on the idea of hope, I reflect, and the Pierre Poilievre never did get the security clearance. And the security clearance is something that was actually brought up at the door, Mr. Speaker, as Canadians were concerned as to why it is the leader of the Conservative Party chose not to get the security clearance. It was a legitimate question before the election, during the election, and I believe it's a good question today. And I'm wondering if the member who is the quote-unquote ethics critic would maybe suggest to his leader that given that every other leader decided the merit of getting a security clearance, does he not believe that maybe his leader should get the security clearance?
Young member for Leeds, Granville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Well, in spite of some of that performance, I welcome my honourable colleague back to the House, and I know he knows it better than most. He spends an awful lot of time in the chamber, and he's here to serve his constituents as well. Look, it's important that the leader of the opposition is able to do his job, as past opposition leaders have said, that the framework that was set up by the Trudeau government was one that would have disadvantaged him in his ability to hold the government to account. And he has a constitutional obligation to do that. For our part, we're going to continue holding the government to account.
Resume.